I will abridge my presentation. The Senate at its plenary sitting of Wednesday, 23rd November 2022, considered a motion entitled Ongoing Bid to Concession the 700 megawatt Zungeru Hydroelectric Power Plant in Niger State, sponsored by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Power, my good self, and co-sponsored by Senator Yahaya Abdullahi Kebi Nord, former leader. The motion followed the Bureau of Public Enterprise in conjunction with the Federal Minister of Power advertorial on Friday, 27 October 2022 for interested concessionaire to submit request for qualification towards the final selection of a concessionaire that will operate, maintain, and manage the 700 megawatt Zungeru hydroelectric located in Niger State. The Senate, being sensitive to concern expressed from different quarters regarding the proposed concession and coupled with the desire to avert a repeat of Nigerian recent experience with the privatization of power assets, and after extensive debate on the motion, resolve amongst others to: 1. Mandate the Senate Committee on Power to investigate the circumstances and conditions under which 700 megawatt Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is being concessioned, particularly as it relates to the utilization of annual budgetary allocation made to the project, completion level of the project, the management of external loans from the Chinese Exim Bank, which are tied to the project, the fate of unsettled host communities where the project is sited, the adequacy or otherwise of selection criteria for the concessionaire, and to generally establish whether the proposed concession of the Zungeru Power Plant is an exercise that would ensure that government get the desired value for funds expended on this project, and report back to the Senate within 2 weeks. The resolutions of the Senate was referred to the Senate Committee on Power via referral letter NAS 93 and 29 November 2022 to conduct investigative hearing and to report recommendations. Mr. President, I will go straight to the observation because you were present. You actually gave the opening remark on the day that the investigative public hearing was opened. So, colleagues who have the report will just go straight to the observation so that we don't. Page 23. We'll go straight to page 23 to the observation. Mr. President, in view of the foregoing, the committee observed the following: that by virtue of Section 62, Section 88, Section 98 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as well as Section 4 and 7 of the Legislative Houses, Powers and Privileges Act, the National Assembly has the power to conduct investigative hearing into the ongoing bid to concession the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant located in Niger State. That concerted effort have been made by the Federal Minister of Power, the Bureau of Public Enterprises, the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, and other stakeholders to concession the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant to comply with the requirement of the ICRC Act. Nevertheless, all stakeholders are unanimous that there are outstanding issues to be resolved to ensure successful completion of the concession process. In the proposed concession of the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant, the BP is executing an operation and maintenance concession arrangement, O&M, under the regulatory oversight of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, while the Federal Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning is the representative of the federal government and custodian of the financing agreement. The Federal Minister of Power is the owner of the power plant on behalf of the federal government and donated the POA to the BPE, that is power of attorney. The Federal Minister of Power Resources is in charge of the hydrology of the asset. The Federal Minister of Environment is responsible for the environment impact of the project, and the Federal Minister of Justice actually gazetted the transaction, that there is lack of consensus between the BPE and ICRC regarding the tenor of the concession and the estimated revenue that would accrue to the federal government from the concession of the power plant. That there are discrepancies regarding the submission made by the Federal Minister of Power and the consultant to the power plant in terms of payment for work done by the contractor and the project consultants, including general delays in payment to the contractor and consultant invoices as alluded to by the project consultant in the submission to the committee. That the Federal Minister of Power made no detailed presentation regarding the issue of existing contractual dispute over variation claims by the contractor against the ministry for additional work for reinforcement of security infrastructure for the power plant, additional work due to unforeseen geological defect under the Zungeru Dam, and adjustment to changes in cost due to inflation. That there is misalignment in terms of the duration of the contract for project consultant and professional responsibility of the consultant since the project consultancy contract expired 28 December 2022, while his professional responsibility is expected to end not earlier than the end of the defect reliability period of 30 April 2024. Defect reliability period, Mr. President, means that it is a period within which the plant will be tested and satisfied that we are generating 700 megawatts of power. I will come to that to explain more on that as we conclude. Although the BPE has expressed commitment to concession the power plant only after it has been completed, tested, commissioned, and the calendar adopted by the BPE for the power plant concession put the end of the concession process at first quarter of March 2023. While the project completion date has now been reviewed to 23rd June 2023, not excluding the defect liability period that will terminate 30th of April 2024. Invited stakeholders justified the ongoing concession of the plant on the basis of the performance of the Shiroro, Jeba, and Kanji hydro power plants concession done in 2013, which show full recovery in terms of generating capacity. Revenue projection arising from the concession of the power plant project is based on the assumption that the concessionaire will generate 700 megawatts from the plant and same will be evacuated, sold to consumers. Mr. President, the finding of the committee: the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is a 700 megawatt hydroelectric power plant located in Rafi local government area of Niger State, approximately 20 kilometers northeast of Zungeru, 25 kilometers southeast of Tegina, 43 kilometers northeast of Mina, and 77 kilometers downstream of the Shiroro hydroelectric power plant. The power plant is designed to generate and inject 2,630 gigawatt hour energy to the national grid upon completion. In November 2012, contract for the award of engineering procurement contract, I can skip that, so much details. Now, page 27, contract for the consultancy service for the project management and supervision of the ongoing project of the power project has been extended by 39 months to expire on the 28th December 2022 from a review argumentation in the contract sum of $3.5 million US dollars plus 3.4 billion naira. Thus, the total consultancy contract sums to $25.3 million plus 3.4 billion naira. Why the APC contract completion date has been reviewed to 2018 to 23rd June 2023. Mr. President, I'm going to the recommendation. Recommendation, Mr. President. Arising from the presentation made by the stakeholders to the concession of the power plant located in Niger State vis-à-vis the committee mandate, as indicated in the Senate referral, the committee hereby submit the following recommendations. The BPE be advised to keep to the commitment made before the committee to concession the power plant only after it has been completed, tested, and commissioned. That will take us to 2024. And accordingly, a new timetable for the concession process be adopted by the BPE to allow time for the actualization of key contractual milestones that are critical to the success of the proposed concession and also make room for full compliance with the EPC contract between the Federal Minister of Power and the contractor. The Federal Minister of Power should liaise with stakeholders to concession the power plant in order to resolve or identify constraints that will frustrate the noble objective of the concession. This includes 100% completion and testing of the plant to confirm that 700 megawatts was delivered by the contractor, completion of the 35-kilometer 132 kV transmission line to Tegina substation as a precondition for the evacuation of the 700 megawatts to be generated from the plant. Resolutions of dispute over unsettled variation claims made by the contractor against the Federal Minister of Power, unpaid contractor and project consultant invoices need to conclude payment of compensation and resettlement of affected communities at the site of the project, extension of the project contractor, end of deferred reliability period, and engagement of the EOM contract to test the plant to confirm 700 megawatts is what has been procured by the federal government and concession to the successful concessionaire. The Federal Minister of Power and other relevant MDA to propose concession to be advised to ensure transparency in terms of budgetary releases made by the federal government to the payment of project consultant or to cover other aspects of the power plant outside the loan secured by the federal government in finance. Last page. The Senate and relevant MDA to the concession of the power plant should ensure vigilance in any public-private partnership involving government power assets to ensure that government is not shortchanged in the process, but such transaction gives the government and the people of Nigeria value for money spent on such assets. The BPE and ICRC are advised to adopt a common position on the tenure of the power plant concession, but in the event that they are unable to reach such a consensus on the tenure of the concession, the recommendation of the ICRC as the apex regulatory of the federal government concession arrangement should prevail. Conclusion, Mr. President. Finally, the committee wishes to use this opportunity to express its gratitude to the President of the Senate and distinguished colleagues for finding us worthy to serve in this capacity. Mr. President, I would like to clarify some of the issues that might be a bit confusing to colleagues here. Mr. President, why we had asked BPE, which is saddled with the responsibility of carrying out the concession, to tally a why for us to do a comprehensive investigation. What we've heard as rumor is that the plant has already been concessioned. But we were expected to present this report and then call them because first, Mr. President, the plant has been concessioned, but it will not be possible to evacuate power from that because the 132 kVA transmission line that will evacuate power, they have not even started it. The 330 transmission line that was started was stopped because of the insecurity in that area. So in essence, what you are concessioning is a plant that you will not be able to evacuate power. And from what I've seen, because I asked ICRC to give me an update, I've just received it while I was sitting here. And I've seen that the concession that has been given, supposedly given, has shortchanged the federal government. Because if I'm taking a plant that I cannot evacuate power from it, of course I'm not going to pay any serious amount. And that is what has happened here. From the report I have received here, the concession money per annum is 70 million per annum. If we multiply that by 30 years, US. If we multiply that by 30 years, Mr. President, it comes to 2.1 billion, which is far less than the amount that the plant is being built, constructed for 30 years, and these people will be operating this for 30 years. So the fact that the plant has not been completed and tested, it then means that any person who is buying it after due diligence will not agree, because you've not tested the plant, so we're not sure whether it will deliver what you say it will deliver, which is 700 megawatts. The liability period, which will expire next year, which gives room for the testing of the plant and satisfying that this plant is well built, well constructed, and it can deliver 700, has not been done. That liability period will take us to, I think, next year, around March or so, 2024. That has not been done. There is this rush. They have not done the transmission that will evacuate the plant, evacuate power from the plant. Mr. President, this is the kind of problem we have in Azura. Azura was an independent power plant, but the federal government engaged in a pay-or-take agreement, take-or-pay agreement with them, where there was no line to evacuate that. And so the federal government has been spending enormous amount of money without necessarily getting the power. Here we are concessioning a plant that we've built with about $2.2 billion for 30 years at the cost of 2.1 billion.
It's criminal.
And it has been done. I've received a report just today. 2.1. No, I have the report here. There was also the disagreement in terms of the tenure. Infrastructural Concession Regulatory Commission has suggested that 20 years was adequate. BPE was saying 30 years. We said they should go and reconcile. But what they have sent, this is the report after the concessioning. They have done it, and they have sent it here. What we have here, Mr. President, is that the fixed annual concession fee per annum for 30 years is $70,000 US per year. If we multiply 70,000 by 30 years, what do you have? 70 million, sorry. $70 million multiplied by 30 years is what you have as, and then they have, is 2.1, which is far less than the cost. The what? No, what they have here is 5-year fixed upfront fee, which is the same thing. They are paying an upfront fee of 291 million, which will be deducted, of course, from the 30 years. And so, Mr. President, I would wonder why this Hello Chamber will give a directive, and that directive is thwarted, and I think a decision should be taken here. We presented the report with the benefit of what they have sent to me. They have done the concession. It's a brand new, this thing has not been tested. They cannot evacuate power there. And so, of course, these people are paying money based on what they have on ground. I buy a plant that can evacuate power, so I'm not going to pay that much. Apparently, that is why the proposal they have sent here as to what they will pay is far less than the cost of production, and they are going to keep that plant for 30 years. Mr. President, I urge this House, these Hello Chambers, to take further action as to what we need to do on this, Mr. President. I so submit.
Advised to keep to the commitment made before the committee to concession the Zungeru Power Plant only after it has been completed, tested, and commissioned, and accordingly a new timetable for the concession process be adopted by the BPE to allow time for the actualization of key contractual milestones that are critical to the success of the proposed concession. Also make room for full compliance with the EPAC contract between the Federal Ministry of Power and the contractor. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2. The Federal Ministry of Power should be urged to liaise with all the stakeholders. What? No, not comment. This time we are voting. Observation on what? Huh? Not comment, not comment. It has to be amendment, not comment. What is the amendment?
That the BPE be advised to rescind all they have done already, because they have already concessioned the place. Oh, that will be additional. Okay. But how do you make it additional when?
I think that is so important that you cannot just throw it into this. It can come as an additional recommendation. Recommendation 2. The Federal Minister of Power should be urged to liaise with all the stakeholders to the concession of the Zungeru Power Plant in order to resolve all identified constraints that will frustrate the noble objective of the concession. This includes 100% completion and testing of the plant to confirm that 700 megawatts was delivered by the contractor, completion of the 35-kilometer 132 kV transmission line to Tegina substation as a precondition for the evacuation of 70 or 700 megawatts to be generated from the plant. Resolution of dispute over unsettled variation claims made by the contractor against the Federal Minister of Power, unpaid contractor and project consultant invoices need to conclude the payment of compensation and resettlement of affected communities at the site of the project. Extension of the project contractor's contract from 20th December 2023 to 23rd June 2024, which is the end of the defect liability period, and engagement of an EOM contractor test the plant to confirm that 700 megawatts is what has been procured by the federal government and concession to the successful concessionaire. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Yes.